Evening, everybody. Welcome to Straight to the Point. My name is Ulrich. I am the other half of the Cokers. Obviously, Siobhan is not here today because today's topic, we're going to be specifically talking to the men. Yes, I said it, the men. And obviously, those of you who have been following us, and maybe some of you that are joining us for the first time, we have been talking on this topic, competing and completed. Now, those two words are very, very, poignant because the one letter that separates the two of them is L, and that's why we call this whole, thing that we're doing Two Love Collective, because we know that love is what connects the competing to becoming complete in whichever relationship that you're in. So I would like to introduce 4 amazing guys who have decided to join me tonight to talk about competing and completing and how it affects them as men. So I have got Manfred Kwapong, I've got Elliot Ray, I've got Carl Hart, and I've got Hassan Solomon, who are here this evening. Welcome, gentlemen. How you guys doing? You guys good?
All good.
Very good.
Good.
Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. So before we continue, I'm just going to quickly go to each guy on the call. Just introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then we'll get cracking with the questions. So Hassan, can you go first for us, bro?
How you doing, guys? I'm Hassan, of course. What do you need to know about me? Well, I'm a married man, been married for 6 years, have 2 beautiful children, 4-year-old and a 3-month-old. First child's a girl and my second one's a boy. For work, I'm a football coach, so everything about me is football related. So I played football as a youngster, stopped playing in my mid-20s, and now coach full-time at Chelsea Football Club. And that's about it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Hassan. Elliot, you go next, bro.
Hey everyone. So my name's Elliot Ray and married for 7 years, beautiful wife, happily married. I've got 1 daughter, she's 5, keeps me busy, keeps me on my toes. In terms of work, so I did a couple of things. I'm starting actually a new job in November, so in a month or so, I'll be the head of D&I at the Treasury. But I've also run a parenting and lifestyle platform called musicfootballfatherhood.com, which is about open conversations around fatherhood. We've got a team of about 20 contributors, really popular blog, do events, and really champion fathers in the workplace and causes to do with dads and fatherhood. That's it from me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Elliot. And Carl.
Hey guys, Carl Hart here. Yeah, married man. Been married for just over a year now. Between myself and my wife, we share 6 children, 4 girls, 2 boys. Crazy house when they all come together. But it's good. It's a really interesting journey, getting to learn about myself and the kids. Work-wise, I run a private equity firm. We invest across various sectors. I also have a foundation where we focus on SDGs and education and prison reform. Sit on a few boards in Southwark and University. Yeah, that's about it really from me.
Nice one. Thanks, Carl. And Manfred?
Thanks for having me, Ulrich. Hi, gentlemen. I'm Manfred Kwapong, father of 4 amazing children. Oldest is 11, twin girls who are 8, and my youngest boy, Jonah, who is 3. Happily married. I like the way Elliot said it. Yes, happily married for 12 years. I also run a digital marketing agency in central London, in a nutshell. And I love Jesus. I love Jesus and involved in ministry work for the past 22 years. I know I look 22, but yeah, 22.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, gentlemen. So, like I said at the beginning, obviously, tonight is literally about, talking about competing and completing. And I think it's really important, especially in this generation that we're in, to kind of talk to the women who might be eavesdropping on this conversation. But really, this is, for men who are either where we are, or men who are upcoming, who may be going through some situations in their life where they need some sort of guidance, some sort of understanding, or just perspective. Because sometimes, it's not necessarily that you always need guidance, but you just need perspective. You just need to know, what are other people doing? What are other men struggling with? And I think, especially for me growing up, I didn't necessarily see the weaknesses of, the men in my life. That was kind of shy away from me. So I didn't know what it meant to be weak, or how to handle weaknesses and stuff, because there's this kind of portrayal that you always have to be strong, you always have to have it all together. But the actual reality is that sometimes we don't always have it together. So tonight is really about, I guess, to a certain extent, getting a bit vulnerable, but just talking about particular times in our lives where we felt like we didn't have it all together, where we had to either compete, or we had to kind of size up or show that we had it when maybe sometimes we didn't, but we had to kind of fight through to get to the stage that we may be at now, where there's a level of completeness, where things have come together, where things are working. We may not be where we want to be, but there's definitely a level of completeness that we've been able to get to, and we can now share to those people who may be coming behind us. Okay, cool. So I'm going to start off with a kind of wide question, and it goes like this. So can you think of a time in your life where you felt like you had to compete in order to be recognized? So I'm gonna let you simmer on that question, and if you feel like you want to go for it and just dive in, then just come in. So have you ever had a moment in your life where you felt like you had to compete in order to be recognized, or to kind of show that, look, do you know what I mean? I'm here. Like, don't try and put me out of this thing, but I'm actually here. Anyone? I'll pick you if it's too silent.
I think
Okay,
it's an interesting question, because when you originally said it's going to be about competition, and I was thinking, it's funny you say competition, because I never thought of myself as a competitive person ever. Until my cousin said I was competitive about 4 years ago, and I was like, really? And I told my wife, I was like, oh, my cousin said, like, Jordan said I was, and she was like, yeah, you're really competitive. And I was like, for real? Like, and everyone I asked said, yeah, you're a really competitive person. And for me, that was never a trait that I associated with myself. But to everyone that I seemed to ask, they saw me as a really competitive person. So I kind of dig deeper about what do you mean? And some of it was kind of day-to-day things, like in silly competition, playing computer games I don't like to lose, or a running race with your kid, or whatever it is, that kind of stuff. But also on the bigger stuff as well, like, and I feel like as men as well, sometimes, or just as people, going into any new environment, whether it's a new job, or when you're younger, going to university, starting a new school, going to a new environment even, there's sometimes that level of kind of feeling like we have to prove ourselves, especially as Black men as well. And maybe feeling like we have to go above and beyond to be seen and to be respected. And I can definitely relate to that. In a lot of, like, I normally, change jobs every 3 or 4 years. And going into that new environment, I'm very aware that based on me being a Black man, people are going to maybe judge and perceive me and maybe see me as something. And so consciously, subconsciously, I'm not quite sure, I might go hard and don't really, really show people I am good at what I do. I know my stuff. And that might transcend into some competition. I don't know if that's healthy competition or not, but I think for me, I've definitely seen that trait, that I do want to be the best in whatever it is that I do. I think that's not a bad thing, apart from when it becomes unhealthy, when, you know, certain behaviors might be not the right behaviors because you're trying to do over and beyond. So I think it's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's good to keep it in check to make sure you're behaving in a way that is righteous and pure.
Yeah.
Definitely. So would you be able to pinpoint an actual time maybe where you actually felt like, you know, you wanted to like compete with somebody else, for example, where you were just like, no, I'm going to show you that I'm better than you?
I don't know if it's about, I don't know if I've had like I'm like that like against a person.
Okay, yeah.
Like I can't think of a time where it's like, I'm going to be better than you. It's more just, I want to be the best of whatever it is that we do. So
Okay, got you.
if I'm in a new job or I'm in a new environment, or even with my business, you know, wanting to be the best, better than everyone else.
Yeah.
And I say that sounds kind of harsh, like gonna go down kind of bullying people. It's not even just that. It's more just like, I know my potential, and I guess it's a sense of pride there, and it's a sense of me knowing what I can achieve and wanting to do the best to do that. And if that means motivated by what other people are doing, then that does happen.
I mean,
That's good.
Elliot was just speaking. I was just kind of just pondering on the question. And to answer that question properly, I've got to take it way back. So this whole competing thing for me, which it just dawned on me right now as you were speaking, actually started when I was, I think, about 11 years old. See, I went to boarding school in Nigeria, you know, and the education system is very different to what it is over here in the Western world. So you have what you call JS1, which is junior secondary 1, JS2, JS3, and it goes up. Now, at the end of the year, you've got to take an exam. And if you fail the exam, unlike the UK, where automatically you just go into year 7, year 8, year 9, if you fail the exam, you repeat that class. So imagine all your peers progressing, and then you have to stay put where you are. So it doesn't matter if you got gray hair, beard, if you fail, it doesn't matter, you'll stay where you are. That's the way the education system was. You know, so from a very young age, that competitiveness was instilled in us, where, you know, you ain't trying to come last. Because if you come last, it's not a case of, you know, you're going to move on with everyone else. It's like the worst thing that could ever happen to you. You know, so everyone was always striving to get, you know, the number 1 spot, number 2 spot, number 3 spot, because at the assembly, that's who those individuals are.
Wow.
Unfortunately, my name was never called. I never competed. I tell her, like, when I got to JS3, I failed and I was going to repeat. But luckily, my parents came and scooped me and brought me to the UK. So that was my saving grace. That was my saving grace.
It saved you.
You know, and then kind of fast forward when I came over here, I got heavily into sports. Basketball was my life. I slept, breathed the whole thing. You know, so again, that same competitive nature of, you know, trying to be the best, and the goal was to make it to the big league, to the NBA. So every day, you know, in terms of mindset, body, physically, you know, you're pushing yourself to get onto the number 1 spot. And I remember I went for trials for GB, Great Britain. And you can imagine everyone's there, you know, trying to get on the team. There's only 15 spots. We had about 200 guys. You know, so again, you know, you're trying to prove yourself and trying to stand out in your own kind of way. And, you know, fast forward from that to now, I guess my sport now is business. You know, I look at the whole thing as a game, you know, and I take that same mentality into the fields that we operate in, you know, and again, it's always competing, you know, to be recognized, you know, to show that you have, you know, great value to add, and to stand out. So, you know, I can honestly say in my entire life, I've always been competing in some way, shape or form, but I'm at a stage now where I kind of understand, yes, I'm still competing in a sense, but I know my lane. I know what I'm competing for, which is not against anyone, but, you know, rather kind of to accomplish my full potential.
That's good. That's good. I like that because I think what you said right there at the end, I think is so poignant because it's like, you know, you're getting to a place now where, or you are at a place now where you're not necessarily competing with an individual, but more so you're competing almost with your own targets, the targets that you have for yourself, and you're trying to almost outdo yourself because innate in you is that kind of thing that, you know, I can't lose. I can't be in fourth place. Like it has to be a medal or otherwise it's not. But I think what I want to kind of tail to that kind of question, have any of you guys ever experienced some of the kind of negative things that may come out of that? Because sometimes I think because of the kind of thirst to be the best or to make sure that you hit those goals, have there kind of been any experiences where you've almost taken it too far, where some negative things have now crept in, whether it's mentally, physically, socially, that have now made you kind of do things that you shouldn't have, where you've now had to kind of learn a lesson and say, you know what, no, actually, I took it too far. But this is healthy competition. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Manfred, do you wanna come in on that?
I don't think I've experienced the point where you're fighting for recognition to the point where you've manipulated a situation or been bad to someone to the point where you said I've gone too far. But in answer to the original question, for mine, when I think of competing for recognition, that was the question. It's as early as 6 or 7. You know, when you grow up with siblings, you know, so a sandwich, I'm in the middle, you know, so I've got a younger, older brother and an older sister. So you're always fighting for your voice to be recognized, you know, so essentially you're trying to be that diplomat, you're trying to please everyone, but essentially you're fighting for recognition. So my earliest memory of competing, not necessarily competing for someone to be down, but competing for attention. You know, look at me. So everyone had their uniqueness. So, you know, from a young age, I didn't like books, you know, but everyone else liked books. So I had to find something about me that was unique for them to celebrate, because when it came to Manfred's books, I wasn't interested. They were reading, you know, those Mickey Mouse, Disney books back on back. And I'd be like, I want to play, you know. So I would look for things in the house that were broken, and I would literally take it apart in the night and pull it back together and fixed it, you know. So that's my earliest memory of competing, but it was mainly competing for attention. You know, look at me, there's something special about me, even to my older brother, to my siblings. But I have not experienced a thing where, and I know what you're talking about, where you're competing for attention so much that you've become manipulative, or you've become malicious. No, I think because of how it felt for me to compete, it was a taste I didn't want to taste no more. I said, I don't want that taste in my mouth. So from a young age, even before I became a Christian, I said to myself, I ain't competing with nobody. I made up my mind. I'm not competing with nobody. Anyone that tries to compete with, even now in my Christian life, anyone that tries to, I feel that's competing with me, I just kind of like, just move away from them, you know. And because for me, I think everyone should have their own personal motivation and their own personal drive, you know. And so it's being driven by me. You know, I'm driven by my own goals. I'm driven by what I want to accomplish. I'm driven by my aspirations and my ambitions. And there'll be people around me, and I've got quite a few people around me who are doing very well, and I'm inspired, but I will never compete. So I don't think, in answer to your original question, I remember competing. I've never been malicious. It's one thing anyone can say to me. I've never been malicious. I'll never trip a man up so I can climb, you know, or throw a man under a bus, you know, so I can shine. And it happens a lot, as Carl would know, in the business world. In fact, in all circles, in all areas of life, especially probably sports everywhere. You know, when you've got people who are malicious or play the game. You know, they play the game, and a place you think it wouldn't happen, in church. It happens proper in church, you know.
Of course.
Everyone trying to slide,
100%.
you know. I remember what I told you this story. I remember one time I met a guy from like a very popular church. And it was like he came with a young lady from my church, and he came to see me. And bro, for the first 5 minutes, he was quoting scriptures. Just quoting scriptures, like proper deep. Wow. And I just stopped him. I said, bro, you win. I said, you win. I said, you are the spiritualist man. Yeah, you win. I'm done. I'm tapping out. You got it. He's like, no, Pastor, no. I said, no, you know what? You don't need to prove to me that you got one.
Come on.
I'm not interested. I'm not interested. Just be you. And
Yeah.
You feel the weight lift off his chest. Just be you. So I'm not into the. I try not to, and it's not to be in the thing where you're competing against your people or the people around you.
Yeah.
It's a taste I've tasted before, and I said to him, I don't like the taste because it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Okay. Hassan, what you saying, bro?
I can relate. It's funny because I think Fred's perception is very similar to mine, and his response is very similar to exactly what I was going to say. So I don't compete with people. Naturally, as an athlete and then someone who is in football, I do compete. So it's a little bit ambiguous for me. So I compete in a sports sense because it's about winning. You have to compete in order to win. And I have an air of confidence about myself. Whenever I step onto the football field, I'm going to win. I'm confident enough to say we are going to win this game. That's when I was playing and as a football coach. Now, when I relate it back to life, I have a slightly different approach. I don't compete with people. And the reason why I don't compete with people is because it can breed jealousy. So quite often, and I'm confident in myself. And the reason why I don't compete with people, of course, it breeds jealousy and it can breed hatred, and it could also breed maliciousness. And those are the type of character traits that I don't like around me and in my circle and in my environment. So if I find that someone is competing with me, more often than not, I will do one of two things. I will either step back and say, go on then, the floor is yours, or I will almost massage their ego to almost make them feel as though they have got one up. Because for me, I know I'm going to win. I know that I'm going to get there eventually. So let's say, I don't know, we're all married here. So let's say getting married. All your friends around you are getting married. You're thinking, sugar, when is it my turn? Oh, I'm going to try and date every single girl around just to make sure that I can put a ring on her finger before he does, or to show him that I too can, find the right woman. For me, the majority of my friends got married before me, and I celebrated them. And I wasn't in a hurry. I was like, when it happens, it happens. And I don't care who is married before me. I don't care if he has bought a home before me. I don't care if he has bought a car, a fancy car. I don't care. The confidence that I have in myself is I will get there. I will get there eventually. And I always liken it, without being overly spiritual, I always liken it to the parable of the talents. Yeah. And everyone has been given their own portion, and it's up to you to use yours in the way that it has been given to you. So I don't compete with Manfred because he's got 5 and I've got 2, but it's not about whether he's got 5 or I've got 2. It's about how well I can use my 2.
He didn't answer.
4.
Sorry, 4.
I think that was prophetic.
There's one in the oven. Manfred, one.
Please. I beg you, please.
Check the pregnancy. You have to ask your wife. Make sure you buy a test. But listen, I'm sure you guys get my point, man. Yeah, you guys get where I'm coming from.
Yes, 100%, bro.
No, I don't compete.
I was just gonna add as well. Like, I think so. Listening to all you speak, I completely resonate with what you're saying, and it was coming to mind the differentiating between competition and ambition.
Yes.
I find that.
Come on, bro. Come on.
competition is different to just being ambitious.
Yes.
And I think
Come on.
it's being ambitious is fine. Being ambitious is good.
Yeah.
We all have our own goals in life, whether they're personal goals,
Yeah.
professional goals. We should have goals. We should strive towards them. But the
Mm.
competition during that is, I think, where things, what you were saying, that's about, you know, breeding jealousy. That's where you can
Yeah.
become hatred in your heart if you see someone doing
Yeah.
better, because it's not about what they're doing. It's about you being
Yeah.
ambitious towards your goals. And I think
Yeah.
for me, I'm at a point now where I'm ambitious, but I also understand that what comes first is my family and my health
Yeah.
and my well-being and my family's well-being.
Mm.
And whatever ambitions I have professionally, they have to come second to that.
Wow.
And there has been times in my life where I've been so ambitious and wanting to achieve so much that
Yeah.
my own well-being has
That's so
suffered
good.
because I put so much pressure on myself to achieve
Mm.
those goals. And it's
Yeah.
a real reality check when you realize that your health is suffering, whether it's a mental or physical health, because you're just spending all your time fixated. Like physically, you might be present with your family and even emotionally
Sure.
present, but every minute of
Yeah.
spare time is spent trying to achieve your goals, you know?
Mm.
And that level of ambition sometimes is not healthy.
Not
And
healthy.
it's interesting
Yeah.
because you speak to a lot of successful people, and of course there will be that level of drive. And you know, if you want to achieve extraordinary things, you have to put in extraordinary effort. But at the same time, realizing that that has to come with a balance and your
Definitely,
well-being. This is a marathon, you know.
Yeah.
I want to live for a long life, right? That has to come with balance. And now I think I'm in a space
Absolutely.
where I'm very comfortable just chilling out for an evening. Whereas talk to me 5-6 years ago, that ain't happening.
And,
You know, so
and
it's growth.
you know what, Elliot, if I may add, what I've also grown to understand is that there are times and seasons for everyone. And just because it looks like, you know, Elliot's doing really, really well and I'm competing against Elliot, on the exterior, it looks like he's having a fantastic time. But inside, oh, only God knows what he's going through. Or when he
Come
gets
on,
home,
bro.
only God knows what he's going through. So you're almost competing with someone without actually seeing the whole picture.
Yeah, like,
That's why it's pointless, because you're competing with someone almost aimlessly without actually
yeah.
seeing what is beneath the surface. So I just don't do it. I see it as pointless, because then when things start to come to the surface, it's almost like, oh my goodness. So all this time I was fighting against Oric. Meanwhile, look what Oric's doing. So I don't see the point.
I know, Ulrich,
stay in my
we have
lane.
to talk about social media at some point. 'Cause I think that's another thing that adds a whole
that-
level of competition.
Bro, you took the words right out of my mouth, because I'm like, I love the fact that you guys are talking about this. And I think I absolutely agree with everything that you guys have said. And I think this is what people need to hear. However, the reality is that we lived in an age before social media. We've social media came in kind of like halfway into us kind of growing up, and you saying, oh, what's this Facebook thing? Oh, what's this Instagram thing? So what about the generation of our young people who this is the norm? Likes, shares, views, do you know what I mean? Filtered pictures. This is their norm. This is how the world is basically saying to them that you're rated. Do you know what I mean? So it's without even saying it, they are born into competition, but not the kind of competition that Carl was talking about with being in boarding school, where, you know, there's kind of like an educational kind of thing where you kind of know, okay, I need to do my thing. This is now something which is affecting people's esteem. Do you know what I mean? Because if they're not getting likes, they're depressed. I'm hearing stuff on the news about, you know, people, you know, young kids committing suicide, you know, because of things that I've done on social media. So how do we, what is kind of the solution that you guys would say, from looking back maybe at yourselves again, or even looking at your children and saying, how do we instill a security in themselves that, you know, how do we build that? Do you know what I mean? Like what Hassan was saying, like I'm confident, like he said it so many times. And I think it's so good, because sometimes you need to keep repeating these things for you to kind of believe it, but how do you get to a point where you can say that I'm confident in myself? Do you know what I mean? Because I'm sure, you know, we've gone through our battles where we didn't feel confident. Do you know what I mean? Where we felt rubbish. Do you know what I mean? I know I have, definitely. Like even now when Carl was talking about his you know, boarding school days, I'm thinking, man, you know what, growing up, sorry, it was Manfred who was saying I didn't like books. And I thought I was an idiot for not liking to read, and, you know, because all of my, you know, siblings, all that kind of stuff, they were, you know, so educated, all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to play. I wanted to reenact movies that I watched. I wanted to be, I was a creative, but nobody knew how to deal with me because it was, you know, book education. It was, do you know what I mean? Get your grades. No. Do you know what I mean? I physically remember, and I'm going to be transparent here, because this definitely has been an area that impacted me just as a man. Like what Carl said, end of year exams, okay? Sierra Leone. I can't remember how old I was. I must have been super young, maybe 5 or 6. And, you know, you had to kind of be at a particular level to go to the next class. Otherwise, like Carl said, you would study for this exam. Study. Like one of the vivid moments I remember studying with every fiber in my being because I couldn't lose. Losing was not an option. Studied, did everything I could. I came out of the exam. Guess what I got? I got 98%. 98%. And I said, yes, I have made it. Do you know what I mean? But when my score came, I came 16th in the class. It crushed me. I didn't even know. It's only like now, you know, sometimes you go things and it's like when you get older, that's when you begin to recollect and stuff. And it crushed me because it made me feel like I've done all of this work, but I still came 16th. What is the point? So I guess I'm saying all of that to kind of share that sometimes some people have these kind of mentalities, you know, from young, and sometimes it's not necessarily parenthood. It's just life experiences. That's why I'm really big on being present with my children and spending time with them and hearing how they talk and how they experience things. And anytime Matthias comes from school, I'm like, you know, what happened today? Because I want to know, because sometimes these things can happen and sometimes we're not even aware of it as parents. Do you know what I mean? And it builds particular perspectives in their minds, which sometimes you're not even aware of it and it's affecting them. Do you know what I mean? So how do we kind of affect these young people who might be struggling with this social media pandemic, as it were?
I mean, look, I'm going to kind of be the one to change the narrative here a little bit from that last topic we were talking about. I mean, each and every one of you went about, you know, Elliot differentiated the difference between competing and having ambition and aspirations. Unfortunately, not everyone's where we are. I, for sure, a few years ago, I'm not who I am now. So I had to compete. And there were people that I did not like because they were beating me. So the anger was there, the envy was there, all of that stuff was there because I was competing for not just my livelihood, but for my self-esteem. Like everything. If there was someone ahead of me, like, bro, I don't like you. You know?
You are the enemy.
I love that.
And that was the truth. Like,
you're the enemy.
Especially on a basketball court where, you know, your performance gets you the girls, it gets you the props from the man them. You know, it's the essence of you. You know, so it's not something I was looking at, okay, I'm just trying to reach my potential. No, I'm trying to beat this guy. I'm trying to secure my spot. You know, but something else that has kind of came to me at the moment is competing in a way where I'm not competing directly against someone, and I'll kind of paint the narrative again and the picture. So I had some serious abandonment issues because my parents left me in Nigeria and came over here. And literally almost to very recently is only when I've really got to a place where I'm okay. But that whole abandonment issue lived with me all through my adult life, my teenage and adult life, which I wasn't aware about. However, when we're talking about competing, I found I was competing against my parents. To say, look,
come on, bro.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to. So it's not, you know, the competition was, you know, I mean, as a young kid in Africa, London is heaven, you know, Great Britain, UK. You know, so for me, it's like, why have you guys left me here and you guys have gone to, you know, to me, it was heaven. You know, so my entire life, I grew up thinking, you know what, because of what you guys did to me, I'm going to show you what you missed out on. So my drive was to show my folks what I can do, who I am, you know, and you're talking about what you mentioned earlier on, Eric, about the negative effects of that. It made me miss out on my parents. And I said to my dad a few days ago, about a couple of weeks ago, like, I'm going to have to eulogize you someday, very soon. And I don't know what to say because I don't know you.
Wow.
Imagine I'm going to have to eulogize you, but I don't know what to say. You know, and I realized the reason for that was because of all these years of me trying to compete with him and trying to be better at him, make more money than him, be more significant than him, you know, it's made me miss out on my, so far, you know, on life and the relationship that any son would have had. That craves to have with a man. And the danger is led to other places and other avenues to go and seek that acceptance from a man, which I didn't get that from home. So the only place that I can get that from was from the streets. You know, and you all know how that other figures on the road, they don't tell you, they don't give you the information that a father is supposed to give to you. They give you information, but it definitely ain't the right one. You know, so it cost me a hell of a lot trying to be in competition with my dad and my parents. That it's only when I've got to this level now, this you know, state of maturity, I'm able to look back and say, you know what, wow, it's cost me a lot. However, and I said to him, it's a good thing because it gives us the rest of our lives to get to know you. Like, I'm at a point now where I can understand you, I can understand your mistakes. I'm a man now, I'm a husband, I'm a father. I can understand some of the reasons why you did what you did. That although I was the one who was impacted, I can understand, you know, and it's really taking our relationship to a whole other level. But, you know, I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say is a different kind of competition that most people find themselves in that they don't even know that they're competing. You know, and more often than none, is going to be the negative things that drive you, you know, and I'll look back and say, in retrospect, I can say I'm almost happy about what happened because it shaped me in so many ways that if I had what I wanted, I wouldn't be a Carl today. No way in hell.
Be who you are today. Absolutely.
I'm okay with who I was and who I am now, and I'm cool with both people.
That's powerful, Carl. And I think
absolutely. I can totally. Go for it, Elliot. Go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say our parents shape so much of, like, when we think about our competition and our ambition and our mindset, our parents shape so much of that. And I was, you know, it's the kind of social media thing. I remember when I did my GCSE RE a year early in year 10, and worked hard. I won't say I worked as hard as you, Ulrich. I was working hard. Not every fibre of my body, but, you know, maybe 3/4. And then I got a B. I came out, I got a B. So I'm thinking I've done great. I'm like, I've done my GCSE a year early. Got a B. That's amazing, right? So my mum was like, well done. And I remember I came into the kitchen and my dad was cooking. And I said to him, Dad, I got a B in my GCSE a year early. And he just looked at me and he was like, well, you better do better next year. And I was thinking, wait a minute, my friends are getting bought like Game Boys and stuff like that. why I'm being told to do better, you know? And I think, I look back and I think that he was trying to, like, give me stuff but not give me everything. He was trying to get that balance between setting me up well with the stuff I needed in life, but not making my life too easy. Where, you know, putting some barriers in the way, basically. Like, and I look back, and even though I was annoyed that day, and I told him as well, I was like, you could have celebrated, you know, I thought that was a good achievement. You could have celebrated me, but I get it. And that actually stuck with me a lot. And I think the funny thing is that at that point, I didn't know what my peers got. Like, apart from my friends, I didn't know what other people in schools got, or other parts of the country. I didn't know I didn't care. Like, I didn't see them. There was no social media. So the only thing I had to was compare to myself and maybe a few of my close friends who shared our grades.
Yeah.
But now a lot of the issue is that we are seeing everyone else. So if you're a 15-year-old kid now and you've got your GCSEs, you log on to Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and you see what the whole world got, and you're comparing yourself to everyone else. And even as adults now, it's very easy. So now I have to limit my time on social media, because I know if I go on there and I see too much, whether I like it or not, it will start playing on my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm not a jealous person 100%. Or in that way at all, but I think it's completely natural. If you're seeing things all the time, you're taking your time away from what you're supposed to be doing, and you can build that sense of, I'm not doing enough. And I think it's very important to recognize that, and just balance the time that you spend on social media and who you follow as well, and who you interact with, and try and make it a positive space. So it's quite difficult to do.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, I would say self-awareness is extremely important. However, competition can be healthy. Because I believe it can drive your motivations. It can push you, or it can encourage you to push beyond the boundaries, because naturally, if you see your peers achieving a goal, you almost say to yourself, I can achieve that too. So I think it can be very, very encouraging, but it can also go the other way, where it can destroy you. And that's why I say self-awareness is really, really important, because when you do get to the point where the fruits of the competition is negative and you're aware of the negativity, then you must learn to draw back. You must learn, if it's social media, to, right, I need to come offline. And then, of course, accountability is always important, because when you've got, a group of friends, or you've got family around you who can almost be aware on your behalf, then I think that's also supportive. Because if they notice traits in your character, like, hey, Oric, you need to calm down, or Oric, you're going a little bit too far, I think that greatly helps as well. So I'm just trying to answer your question in response to how do we help the younger generation, because a lot of what Carl said, I felt it. It touched the nerve.
Trust.
Because a lot of guys go through either the same or have gone through similar. But with Carl, it certainly wasn't a negative outcome. It's certainly been a positive outcome. I'm not talking for you, Carl, here, but I think at the point where you're really self-aware, I think it really helps. It greatly helps.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Manfred?
You know what? So
come on, I know you're itching, bro.
Powerful. Carl, you and Elliot and Hassan, you touched some nerve.
You go. Yeah.
I think you started with something that Elliot initially said about almost like competing with yourself. Sometimes you're not competing with someone else, but you're putting too much pressure on yourself. And it's majority of men can be guilty. Let's say you're not competing with Ulrich or competing with Johnny or Albert, but you're competing with an image of what a man should be, an image of what success should be, an image of what is it, when you're 33, you should have this or should have that. When you're 38, you should have this. And I think that alone sometimes can crush you, and it's about almost like take your time, take the pressure off yourself, realize like what Hassan said, that not every season is the same and seasons change. And sometimes like you put so much pressure on yourself to achieve this thing, to be this thing, and you're not competing with no one, and you drive yourself into depression. And it's almost a little bit like what the scripture said, the desire of the sluggard killeth him because his hands refuse to work. So you have a great desire, but you're not even doing the thing you need to do to get there, and you caught yourself in the catch-22 where you're depressed and you're down. And it's because it's with your own ambition you're getting down. And like Carl, like Elliot said, sometimes you need to like just take the pressure off yourself. Realize what is priority. your health, your family, those around you. You know, and again, what Hassan said about influences. Look, the Bible clearly says in Corinthians that bad company corrupts good manners. So in the reverse is the same.
That's right.
The reverse is the same. When you're around people that are achieving, and if you've got any ounce of ambition, there should be something in you that says, I can do that too. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. When you're around people, like if you're around good ballers, there's something in you that should say, I'm gonna kick ball, I'm gonna up my game in a positive way. And I think that's, I wouldn't call it competition. I'll call that like good peer pressure. We need that. If you're a gifted singer and you watch someone singing on TV and nothing twitches inside of you, maybe singing is not for you. Do you understand? If you're a gifted footballer and you know you should be playing football, I'm not saying like you've passed the football time, or you should be doing something connected to football, and you see someone moving in their gift, there should be something inside of you that goes, I can do that too. And I think I think that's the benefit of social media, because you get to see people your age. You get to see your peers doing something. You know you can do it. Maybe you do need to kick up a butt. You need to kick up your backside to say, let me get up on my feet and do something. But bringing it back again to what Carl said about that thing about his parents, that competing against words, you know, because I had that in some sort of way, because my thing was the books, the books, and I was adamant that, listen, not my thing. I learned to read properly, watch this properly at the age of 15, properly. And the first thing I learned to read properly was the Bible. And that's when things came properly. It was about, I'll never forget my interview at secondary schools. And then Mr. Wall said, okay, well, part of the interview is to read the book. I remember my dad going, putting his head. So he knew it was a wrap. He knew it was over. He wanted to end the interview there. And I'll never forget my mum looking to me like, go on. And I thought, boy, after the first 3 words, it just weren't coming fluently. I started to make up words, you know. I just started to, he giggled a bit. He was like, you're such a cheeky boy, you know. You're making up words. I know those words are not in the book. And he said to my parents, you know what? This guy, there's something about him. It's got great potential. We're gonna let him. Don't worry. Not meant to tell you if you get into school. Don't worry. And I remember I said to myself, you know what? I'm gonna show that if someone's competing against word, that I'm gonna be somebody. Believe me. It might not be through books, but I'll be somebody. I'll be, and there is that almost like you will see. Just like Carl said, you will see that I will succeed. You know, you will see that I'm not gonna break, and you hold this expectation that I'm going, and you're pushing yourself, but you have to be careful that you don't push yourself to the ground. You know, so powerful.
Awesome. I mean, it's go for it. No, go for it.
Thinking back to what you mentioned about social media and this current generation, as you said, this is all they know. They don't know they didn't come from where we came from.
Absolutely.
Those who are in this generation listening to this, when you compete against, you know, the likes and, you know, everything else that you see on social media, that competition, you've got to understand, almost when you compete, it's almost like you're trying to compare like for like.
Yeah.
This person's doing this, or this person's got 100 likes, I need to get 100 or more. So it's almost comparing like for like. What you got to realize and understand is your difference is your critical success factor. I'll repeat that. Your difference is your critical success factor. But most people do the contrary, where they're trying to compare like for like. If 10 people are all the same, you're all the same. There's nothing standing out about you. So what's different about you is what's going to ultimately make you successful. If you look at anyone in history, at success in whatever sector, what makes them successful is why they stand out. So if anyone listening to this is on social media and you're having that pressure about matching up your peers, the only way that you can pull out from that sort of pressure is to, number one, understand what is different about you. And that is the one thing that's going to propel you and make you stand out from the millions of people on social media. So I think anyone who's listening to this, dealing with that peer pressure and trying to compare yourself and be like whoever else that you follow on social media. Your difference is your success factor.
I'll add to that too. Also, don't forget, people only post. They only post their victory.
15 seconds.
But people only post their victories. They only post. No, I said to my miss, if we ever have beef, I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna say, me and my wife just had a big.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
No, because you get fed up. I said,
It's true. It's so true.
People just post their victories. I mean, I used to have a private profile, and I had nice times, holidays, and all of that. And when I was gonna go public, I said, I'm gonna remove all of that. Remove the wow. I'm gonna remove all of that because that's all social media is full of. And if that's your thing and that's what God is using, fine. For me, I think it's a false reality because anybody who's living knows every day is not a victory. Every day is not. If someone is trying to convince you every day is a victory, know in your heart they are lying. Because there are days you feel it, there's days you don't. There are times you wasn't sure, there's times you had insecurity, there's times you were fully sure. Do you understand? Because we're all working it out. And when you study these people who've made it, like I think it was a few years, there was an interview with Forrest Whitaker, and he was talking about he had done many movies, still wasn't sure if he was called to be an actor. Many movies. It was in his 30s, late 30s to 40, then he thought, you know what, maybe this is my calling. Sometimes you're working it out as you're going along. You understand? Some people knew from the age of 2, I'm going to be a success. God bless you. Do you understand? But there's the majority of society who are working it out. And I say, don't be fooled by people's storytelling. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Like even in Christendom, and humans, we are all human. We all have to go to prayer. Like the ballers in this room. If you got raw talent's not enough. You still have to nurture it. You still have to develop the skill. It's not enough. So that if anybody who's showing pure skill, there was elements of training and nurturing that has to take place. And always know that somebody had to pay. Someone somewhere during the line has paid the price, and they may not choose to show you, but they've paid the price.
Definitely. I think, there's so much I want to say. It's crazy. But I think just to touch on what Manfred said about, social media being something that, people only post their victories. I think that's why, we've created platforms like this so that we can share some of the failures. Because I think in this generation, because it's so heavily social media orientated, which is always portraying the good stuff, like I said before, the filtered photos, the perfect picture. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like me and my wife, we go through the same thing. We take about 6 or 7, sometimes even more, and we're sitting there flicking. No, not that one. No, this one. No, my face is not right. That one. Do you know what I mean? Just to find the perfect picture, and we all go through it. But I think what needs to start happening, and this is, I guess, a culture shift that needs to happen, but I don't know how we do that, which is sharing those moments. That's why when we talk about our relationship, do you know what I mean? We talk about the fact that we have arguments because I need the next generation to understand that marriage is not this perfect thing where we're always seeing eye to eye. There is, because especially for Matthias and Cyrus, I say to them all the time, even Cyrus as he's 8 months, I'm just like, look, having arguments or having disagreements is a healthy thing. But what I need to teach them is how to be mature enough to handle those moments. Because those moments, if they're not handled correctly, is where now you can start imprinting negative things on your children. And then they begin to think that that's how it's supposed to be done. But I think for us to always shy away from those negative sides or things that may not look so good, I think maybe that's kind of why, our young people are kind of not really understanding how to process particular things that they're going through, because they're not seeing it. And to go off what Carl was saying, Carl, thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable, because I think what you shared about your dad is such a big thing right now. And obviously we know that from that, it's obviously motivated you to where you are now. But I think I want to touch on that a little bit more, but from a different perspective, and talk about fatherhood. And I'm so glad, obviously, all of you guys have got children, so you guys can relate. Because one of the things that I have in my heart in terms of helping the next generation, especially men, is having fathers that stay. Because I think, like Carl rightly said, obviously you may not have been the man that you are today had your dad, do you know what I mean, not left you in Nigeria and all of that kind of stuff. But I think, how do we now translate this to today? Do you know what I mean? Because I think that's why I got you guys together, because I know that you guys are married. I know that you guys, you know what I'm saying, have got children. But I think you being present to watch over your children communicates so much about how your children are going to now shape their generation. Do you understand? Because they won't necessarily have the stories that we have. Do you know what I mean? Because I think, Carl, for you, you know, your motivation was about, you know, your success in terms of, you know, business and I guess just your life, showing your parents that, look, I can do better than what you did. For me, it was relationships. Do you know what I mean? It was the fact that I can see my parents' marriage work out because they got divorced when I was young, and I was determined to understand what makes a marriage work. And so what I realized times is that your purpose is birthed out of your pain. Who you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to become sometimes is birthed out of the thing that you didn't have, the love that you didn't get, the hugs that you didn't get, the praise that you didn't get. Because now that inspires you to now be like, well, I need to give that, or I need to give what I wasn't given. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So I guess my next kind of framing of question is to deal with fatherhood. And, you know, what has, let's see when you're flowing in it, how has fatherhood like shaped you guys as men today?
I would
how
say,
has being a father, how has that shaped you guys?
For me, it's humility. For me, I realize real change is when leadership is transparent. You know, so growing up, my dad had no fear. My dad was fearless. He was brave. He weren't afraid of nobody. So my idea of fatherhood or being a man was someone who was fearless, didn't cry. My dad, you know, some people are criers. My dad wasn't a crier. I never see my dad cry. Very, very hard military type of guy, you know. So I didn't know my dad's failures at the time. I didn't ever hear him say sorry if he made a mistake. So, but with me, with fatherhood, what I've realized that you have to be humble. You have to be able to say sorry when you've blown it. You know, you have to be able to say, you know, I wasn't sure, and be able to share that moment with your children, you know, when they're old enough to understand that you wasn't sure and you didn't have the full conviction, and you was still asking God, what do I do next? And that's what I'm showing my children. I've learned to teach my children about the humility of leadership, and that you can make mistakes. For prime example, we were coming from somewhere last week, Saturday, and as we're driving, some God forgive me, some particular guy was with a Morris bike, you know. He was in the middle of the road, and I'm being kind, I'm being patient, and like he's like, come on, just like shoo me away, like a small boy. See already, I'm speaking. So he should be away now, and so I switched on him. I'm like, who are you talking to? That, mind you, this is Manfred. Man, my children see me preach, pray, and all of that. I said, who are you? Why not come out the car and teach you a lesson? That was my brother. You want me to come out my car? You want me to come out my car? So like, obviously now the guy's like, he's taking a step back. He's gone all red, and like it was silence of the lamb in the car. But I knew that was wrong. It was wrong. It was wrong. I should have composed myself. I should have just let him go. And so it's bugging me now because I could have just kept my ground. So the kids are silent, and my youngest is free. And he's so funny. think he said something about, he just repeat, he can formulate sentences, not fully, but he can say a few words. And he starts saying, Daddy, you gonna come out the car? And laughing. And like everyone laughing. Like, so I had to call them and say, you know what, guys, I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. And I said, the reason why I'm sorry is that's not the way you manage situations, and especially being a Christian. I was like, I'm really sorry. And I got it wrong, I should have contained myself, and not threatened to get out of the car and deal with the guy, and I'm sorry. And they were like, oh, it's all right, Dad. It's okay, Dad. Don't worry about it. But I had to swallow my pride. Do you understand? And teach them that you get it wrong. But because even from the contents of the road, like anyone who's been exposed to the road in any capacity, that the oldest from young, they were fearless. They never told you they were down. They'll never tell you they were depressed. They never tell you they suffered from trauma because their parents wasn't around or their parents were on crack. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you they were lonely. They're just hard. Some of them are killers. They stole a cold heart. And so you just grow up thinking they're not scared, but with your own fears and you bottle it in. So my greatest lesson is learning to be humble, learning to be transparent, and not being afraid to tell your kids, I blew it. I've made mistakes. There was time I was afraid. I told my kids, there was a moment in my life when I was afraid. They were like, you, Daddy, afraid? You was afraid? I said, yeah, one time a cat chased me. They were like, a cat? A cat, yeah. A pussycat chased me. They're like, so I tell them silly stories like that. Then I tell them there's times when I wasn't sure. Do you understand? And I think for me, my greatest lesson is to be transparent and not trying to sell them the idea of this hard-bodied super, which don't exist.
Hey guys, we have to take a break right now. I know the conversation is getting to that place, but we had to do it. We're going to be showing part 2 of this conversation next week, Tuesday, at exactly the same time. So make sure you find yourself right here, Two Love Collective YouTube page. Make sure you click the subscribe button and also click that bell icon so that you get a notification the next time we go live. You have been watching Straight to the Point. The topic has been competing and completing, and we have been talking to the men. Guys, we really appreciate you guys for tuning in tonight, and we are asking you guys to come back next week as we're going to show part 2. We know that it's going to be amazing. I know it's going to be amazing. The conversation goes even deeper and we get even more vulnerable. So definitely lock in next week so that you can enjoy the second part to this conversation. Guys, thank you again. Have an incredible night, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care. Bye-bye.